Wine and Real Estate listeners, it's Jason Lowe from episode number 129. At Ascendant Financial, ivcforme.com, we specialize in teaching real estate investors all across Canada the process of becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept. Do you also find it frustrating when it becomes difficult to access the financing that you need, or when interest rates in the housing market moves against you? And when there's unexpected prolonged vacancy or expensive repairs, are you tired of transferring all that money away from you? We have the solution at ibcforme.com. By becoming your own banker, anything that you're already doing financially, including real estate investing, is radically improved. Whether utilizing this process for down payments or for entire real estate purchases, becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept, puts you in a position of total and absolute control over the repayment schedule of your loans while enhancing your overall returns. So whether you're a new real estate investor or a seasoned real estate investor, we believe that ready access to money to take advantage of high caliber opportunities and all the financial control should be in your hands, not the bank's and not some loan officer. We have an exclusive and irresistible package for Wine and Real Estate podcast listeners. And so if you want the best way to build and deploy capital, easier access to money, better returns, less headaches, head on over to ibcforme.com. That's ibcforme.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wine and Real Estate. So today I'm really excited. I'm drinking my favorite wine lately. It's called Don't Poke the Bear, and it's a play on words. Yeah, if anybody's paying attention right now, if you're watching this, not listening, you'll see my guest, Kevin, in Costa Rica, and he's got a Canadian mug, which is great. And
I've got my Canadian mug in support.
Yes. So unfortunately, at the time of this recording, I guess the Canadian soccer team lost. I'm unfortunately not really in tune with any of that stuff, but it sounds like it's a big deal. But Costa Rica is still in, so that's great. Yeah, and you got your shirt and your colors. So we're hoping Costa Rica survives and wins, maybe. Who knows? Did they have a chance of winning?
Winning tomorrow. Well, stranger things have happened. Heck, the U.S. beat the Soviet Union in 1980. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Everything's possible. So thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us tonight on Wine and Real Estate. And I wanted to hear and share your story with my listeners. I really enjoyed, we've had conversations in the past, and I think you have a really inspiring story. And you do a great job. You have a nice YouTube channel and a nice presence on social media for those interested in investing in Costa Rica. But before we get to the deals and the real estate, I need to get to know you, or the audience needs to get to know you a little bit more. So can you give us maybe a 30,000 foot view of who you are and how you ended up in Costa Rica? Because you're a very pale Tico.
Yep. And I am technically, well, Tico by having a baby here now. So we'll talk about her in a minute, but just going through the right procedures, and we'll talk about that too. But yeah, Kevin Walters, born in the United States. I'm also an Australian citizen, and that's where I actually started my real estate career. I was involved with sports with the Institute of Sport in Australia for several years, and then decided it was time for a change. And I went completely 180-degree change, and I went into real estate. After 1 year, I decided to go ahead and get my full broker's license, which I did successfully and thankfully. And I'm really glad I learned how to do real estate in Australia. They are extremely strict. The rules are extremely strict. The laws are strict, and the education is great. So that was pretty much suit and tie every day. Maybe on Saturdays going and showing people around. I may be in slacks and a button down, but yeah, completely different than it is here now.
Yeah, or even Canada. Most realtors, I mean, for their headshots, they're dressed up, but when you tour properties, yeah, it's whatever, it's casual. So
you're not going to see me in flip flops and board shorts, but I mean, I will dress appropriately here because I try to follow a dress code in my own mind, and obviously ethical standards that I learned from Australia and the United States, taking real estate courses there as well. But gosh, how did I get here is probably a question that you're going to be asking me.
Yes.
And
From Australia too. Like that's another beautiful country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope we can get there together sometime too. What happened was the bottom of the world fell out with a lot of countries in 2007, 8, 9, 10,
Oh,
11. Ninja loans, and we can't blame it on people that are MLOs or mortgage lenders or anything like that, but people got a little too big for their britches and the economy went south. And I think I'm probably saying that politely. I happened to be in real estate at that time. Australia is pretty strong with their finances and getting loans and being cashed up to get those deposits, whether or not they be maybe 5, 10, or 20% deposits. They're pretty well cashed up. So in 2009, I had a lot of my clients ask me what the heck's going on in the United States. And from there, said, I don't know. I'm working with you, Francois, that lives in Sydney, and I'm working with your cousin that lives in Melbourne, and all of that stuff. But I did actually go home to visit my parents for Christmas, and I saw it with my own eyes, and it was, gosh, it was scary. There was a lot of homes, and they were homes of affluent people, but they were probably also borrowing a lot of money to show that BMW, that Porsche, live in that $800,000 or $1 million house at the time. So just like, boy, it's a horrible way to look at it, but a lot of people have made money by going in and capitalizing on other people's losses. So I went around and I started doing a lot of research, and I found good property managers at the time. I found good international lawyers, accountants that could work with us, bank managers, so on and so forth. And I try to tie it all together with the same type of people in Australia. And gosh, it would have been probably March 2009 that I sold my first property to somebody from Australia into the United States. And then from there, it just kind of trickled on, and I was doing boutique and educational sessions. How do you do it? How do we know that it's safe? So on and so forth. And then it took off like wildfire. And from 2011 to 2013, we did over 500 transactions. I want to say that the number was 537. That was getting a lot of foreclosed property from the courthouse steps. The main area was in Arizona. We did pick up some properties in Texas, and we picked up several properties in Atlanta. And we had a methodology. We wanted to make sure that we had a good road infrastructure, that there were good universities, there were good public and private schools. And one thing that was really important too, international airport. It was very scary. Yeah, it was very scary in the beginning because we didn't have a crystal ball to find out what was going to happen. And we did have some bumps in the road along the way with individuals that said that they could help us out. And so learning experience all the way through. So we fine-tuned it, and it was very successful. Then we came down with a property management group in 2013 to look at things here in Costa Rica. And for my clients, we weren't quite ready yet. The infrastructure wasn't quite set up properly, and the infrastructure wasn't quite set up for Costa Rica at that time. But gosh, Francois, how long have you been coming down here?
Only since March. So March, 8 months, maybe. That's it.
Okay. Well,
I was told about 10 years. It used to be a very different country, like far.
Oh my gosh!
Roads and
a fancy car at that time was a 1987 Honda.
Oh wow!
Or a beat up pickup truck, and you were just north of us, and I'm sure they've got fancy cars up there. I've seen absolutely everything here except for a Lamborghini car. I've seen a Lamborghini SUV.
Okay, you need it in some areas.
Oh my gosh. Well, why people get these cars down here, I don't know. I mean, as you know, some of the roads can be a little bit, the terrain can be a little bit rough. But what I'm getting to is, hey, we just had our baby. Valentina was born 1 month ago today, 30. So yeah, we're pretty excited about that. If you follow our social media channel, Costa Rica Investment Properties, you'll see a lot of Valentina lately. But charging stations. The hospital that we were in, they had a bed in there for me. She was born on a Sunday, and I got to watch the NFL Network pretty much the whole time while poor Mary was having her contractions. But I was a good husband, made sure that we did. Actually, it's funny. We laugh about this. It was the first Sunday fun day that we've been together that I had never had a beer, a wine, or any other cocktail.
Oh, wow.
Because we wanted to make sure that we were, well, she couldn't, and we just did that way. But what I'm getting to is the private healthcare is unreal. The schools are great. You've driven the roads a lot here, and you can attest
there's some good roads, really. It depends, but not all of them.
Yeah, going between Cocoa and Tamarindo, that might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I did see some great opportunity here and decided to stay here, and we started picking up a lot of traction again. And then all of a sudden COVID hit.
Yeah.
So that put a damper on not just us, but the whole world.
Not in Canada, created the opposite for real estate. It became total insanity. And yeah, it's actually kind of scary. You almost have a bubble here because of COVID. But anyway, it's cooling down now, finally.
I thank the Canadians for that, because the equity that you guys have gained, you've been our biggest supporters of purchasing in Costa Rica now. It's wonderful. And you've got direct flights down here too.
Yes, to Liberia, San Jose. So it's very easy to get to. And the time zone, depending on the season, you're the same as Alberta or right now, Central Canada. So Manitoba and Saskatchewan are in the same time zone as Costa Rica. So very easy place to travel to. And let's face it, there's a lot of affordable places. It's in US dollars. So it's a bit harder. Our currency has gone down quite a bit here, but still the income we would earn as investors is in US funds, which is great for Canadians again.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And that is true. So, I mean, we've got someone that just sent some more money down today, and we're going to be doing a closing on a property with some Canadians prior to them getting here. And that may be a question you ask during this podcast. Do you need to have feet on ground to purchase the property? You do not. We would do a power of attorney, and either the attorney, the attorney's assistant, myself, or someone that they choose goes in and assists with the closing as well.
Okay, so you don't. That's something I learned because my lawyer had told me you have to be here for the closing, but I guess not. I guess there's possibilities, because that is something that is hindering a few people. They're busy executives here. They want to buy, but they don't have time to fly down just to sign some paperwork. So that's a great option to have.
Yeah, and it's just a document. Obviously, setting up a power of attorney costs a little bit more, and it's only for that closing. Doesn't mean I'm going to have a power of attorney on your bank account or your electric bills or anything like that. It's only specific for the closing on a real estate transaction.
Great. So there you go, listeners. If you want to buy remotely, you can, and you don't have to actually go in person. Ideally, you do want to go because it's beautiful. But let's say it doesn't fit in your schedule, then there you go. You can buy it and show up a few weeks later and just enjoy the place. So Kevin, let's get into maybe more of the real estate questions. So we mentioned, yes, you can buy a property in Costa Rica. Can you buy in your own name, or it has to be a corporation? What's the deal behind that? Because in the US, normally as a Canadian, you want to buy in a corporation because of, I'll be a little blunt, but the national sport of the Americans suing each other, which we're not used to in Canada. So that's why you want to buy in a corporation, but Costa Rica is a different country. So
yeah, so we get that question all the time. Should we be buying it in our name, or should we be purchasing it in a corporation? Again, disclaimer, it's always best. Oh, and speaking about that, I think you may show that later. We had a great conversation or a YouTube tutorial with a law firm here that goes over that stuff. But so to make it simple, if you're going to be living down here and you're already retired, doing it in your name is completely fine. Okay, if you don't have to worry about dual taxation and things like that, completely fine. If you're going to be running a business, so if you're purchasing a property as an investment property in the beginning and using Airbnb or whatever you may be, I am going to suggest two things. One, set it up in a corporation, and two, make sure you get guidance from a property lawyer. Don't go to an immigration lawyer for that. I shouldn't say that because my immigration lawyer actually does property law too, or within their division. But you don't want to be going to a litigation lawyer to set up your property. Oh, but Francois's friend is a lawyer in Costa Rica. Use it professionally in the industry. So
Yeah.
two things: set it up in a corporation, one, but make sure that you're getting the right advice from a professional.
No, that's so true. And it makes things easier as well when you want to open a bank account if you have a corporation, because as a Canadian or American or from another country, you don't have the cedula, the local ID that's being used for many things, but you have the corporate document. So it opens a lot of doors and makes it simple. And as you mentioned, for accounting as well, you do get double taxed as a Canadian anyway, but it still keeps things a bit more neat and simple. So are there financing options? That's another one. As investors, we love to leverage our money, put in a bit of money, but what are the options to buy in Costa Rica?
Well, the first thing is there are options. In Costa Rica, not so much, with the exception if you are selling your property and you want to do seller's finance.
Okay.
So, and I always try to go to bat for my clients and try to find them seller finance. I hope your listeners are not driving a car right now while we're talking about this, but the interest rates are going to be considerably higher. But there's also going to be like a no doc. Granted, there'll be documentation written up on it, but they're not going to be checking your credit scores or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it would be drawn up. And it would be actually registered when you register your property here. And if you're doing seller finance, that'll be with a registered lien with the country of Costa Rica.
Great.
Through the Costa Rican registry. So there's one. Seller finance is one. People that you've introduced me to up in Canada, that I'm not going to say everyone can do this, but they can take out, and this goes for the US as well, they can borrow equity against their existing home, preferably through a mortgage lender, not through a bank. Do not go to HSBC in Toronto. Do not go to Wells Fargo in the US and ask your mortgage lender if they can do that. They're just going, no, we can't lend on that. Speak to a proper mortgage lender that can help you work on the wording for that. But you've also got in the United States, we have it through self-directed IRA or your 401k. And in Canada, you have another format as well that we can use, correct?
Yeah. So the RRSPs, registered retirement savings plans, you can use, or you can use your TFSA, tax-free savings account. You have the same concept in the US. And normally those money, just like in the US, you can lend it out arm's length. So if you want to lend it as a mortgage, but with Seaport Credit in Canada, and there are equivalents in the US as well, you can borrow it yourself with very little tax implications and use it to buy a secondary residence outside of Canada or the USA. And that's a great way to finance. Another one is builder financing. So some builders, I think, finance new builds in part.
That is on occasion. We would have developer financing that does come up sometimes as well. Sometimes they may take a credit check, or sometimes if you put 50% down, they'll work with you as well.
Yeah, that's it. It's a lot less. The loan to value is more 50. I've seen up to 70, but it's quite rare. Most I've seen is 50. So you have to bring in some cash. And I guess you could do partnerships. So joint ventures, find someone who's got money, partner with them, find private lenders in Canada or in the US. So there's many ways, but you have to be creative. It's not like in the US or Canada, you go to your bank or mortgage broker and say, I want to finance this house. It doesn't work that way in Costa Rica.
And between you and myself, and for the listeners out there, we do have people that are specialized in that. When I say creativity, and you say that as well, it's not being like what happened in 2007 and 8.
No.
It's being smart on how you've made that money. Now let's go ahead and put it to good use.
Yeah. Invested in a property that's going up in value, might bring in some income. And it is a much more stable market because it's mostly a cash market in Costa Rica. So that bubble that happened in the US and in many other countries in 2008 can't really happen in Costa Rica because mortgages are, if there are mortgages, they're much lower. Like we said, 50%. Here or back in 2008, we were at 0%. People were getting cash back to buy a place.
Like Japan.
So, yeah, that's it. Or 0% interest or -1, like in some European countries. You were getting paid to buy a house. So very different story. To continue, so we mentioned the corporation, finding the right property. So what do you recommend, Kevin?
I recommend that you come down here and take a tour.
Yes.
That's the best advice I can give. When the people were buying from Australia into the United States, oh, we trust you. And you need to fly across the Pacific and come check this out with your own eyes for a couple of reasons. People say that they want, first of all, you know this too. A lot of people think that this is a third world country. This is not a third world country.
No.
This is not Mexico 1986 where you're going to get a $30,000 property. In my portfolio, anything from 150 to, heck, we're about to launch a $45 million project. So now that's not one property, but it averages at about 500,000 within there. Come down, use it as a business write-off, come down and see it with your own eyes. I will personally take you, if you're coming down to our region, I will personally take you to meet with property lawyers. I'll introduce you to property managers. You'll go see homes that have already been sold and what type of rent they're getting. And then before you get here, I'll also have a kind of like an MLS type sheet, but properties that we may have for sale or working co-broke with other brokers. We send out requests. We're looking from 150 to 200,000 on the beach, 3-bedroom. And I'm politely going to tell you that's not going to happen. Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to be maybe close-ish, but not on the beach.
Right. So, and you're going to feel a lot more comfortable. You're either going to come down here and say, heck, I want this. I know what I'm looking for. When something like that one comes up on the market again, I'd like something like that. Or, gosh, this was a great trip. It's a beautiful country. I see a lot of opportunity, but we're not quite ready to do it yet. Don't worry. I'm going to be here for a long time and still here to help you out. So how do you do it? You come down. We pre-qualify you. I'm not going to pre-qualify you like a banker would or like a realtor in Canada or in the United States would and say, do you have your finances in place? If you're coming down here on your own dime from Toronto, you're probably going to be pretty darn interested. So
yeah, well, it's a commitment.
Yeah. So the main thing is come down and check things out yourself. And you're going to find out, as much as I love beach property, you don't always have to be on the beach to get something that's going to have a great ROI. Your property's not on the beach. My property that I'm talking to you in right now, I'm a whole 1 mile, so 1.6 kilometer away from the beach. But on certain nights, I can still hear the ocean.
Yeah, and that can actually be nice. A lot of people have this vision of being on the beach. And you are, Kevin, you're in Jaco in Punta Arenas province. I don't know if I say it right, but
Punta Arenas, anyway. Yep.
Okay. And that beautiful area, I've seen lots of pictures. I do have to go at some point. So I'll have to fly. I have an invitation to San Jose from some new friends I made, and then I could drive down. It's not too far, but
you come down, I will personally pick you up.
Wonderful. So yeah, I have friends in Alajuela now. So
suburban
San Jose. So I get to stay there and then come and see you. But what I wanted to say is being on the beach can be loud. So that's where a lot of parties happen. There's all kinds of things going on. So if you're not too far, you can get to the beach, but then go home and sleep. I need my beauty sleep. So being on the beach, the waves and stuff, I mean, it's great, but it can be a bit louder and there's all kinds of things and wildlife. And so there's pros and cons. Of course, it's beautiful, but there's advantages.
Jaco is a very touristy town, but we will have less parties on the beach because it's a touristy town. We'll be about, our main street is probably, oh gosh, I'm going to say, depending on where you're at, anywhere from 200 to 300 meters. The main strip, about 200 meters to the beach, and that's where people are going to have their nightlife.
Yeah.
And we're getting a lot more. There is more luxury type of planning and permitting stages going through right now for beachfront property.
Great. And that's another conversation. Beachfront is concession land for the most part. So if you're an investor and you want titled property and stuff, I don't think it's possible.
But not in Hako.
No, not in Hako.
We are fully titled in.
Wow.
Yeah, we are fully titled beachfront land here in Hako. All Hako and some of the surrounding areas are titled land. And if you're not familiar with concession or titled, a complete newbie, titled land, just like in Canada, the United States, Australia, you own it, it's yours, or it belongs to your corporation, however you set it up. Concession land means that you're pretty much, it's a lease from the country, from the government. And it can be, well, here it's 25 years.
So it's kind of short.
Yeah. And you can actually get property where there may only be 2 years left on that concession, and then you have to reapply for it. That's where a very, very good property lawyer comes in and says, I know what legislation is going through. Even though that you have 2 years left, we still feel that it's fine for you to purchase this property. At the moment, I have personally not had a client purchase a concession land property. All of ours have been titled, and I just feel a lot more comfortable that way.
Yeah, me too. That's what I recommend, because concession land is like buying in a condo, and condos are very different in Costa Rica. So in Canada, a condo, a lot of people don't know, but it's kind of a land lease for 99 years. And then it expires at some point. Normally it gets renewed because the building's already there and it's owned by the condo corporation or condo board. But anyway, lots of advantages in buying titled properties, which I think is better for financing as well. I don't think a lender would lend on a concession land. So anyway, I don't want to focus on that, but really cool to learn that Hako is all titled beachfront property. Wow. Very interesting. So there you go, a hot tip, because most of Costa Rica is concession land. If you're on the water, you have to be a Tico or married to one, and then they have to own 51%, I think.
You are correct.
Property. So again, it's not concession, but it's you still don't own it directly. So what are the taxes that need to be paid in Costa Rica? Because that's a big thing. A lot of people don't know the taxation system, and what are things to consider?
So the first thing to consider, again, if you have a good lawyer representing you, I already got something from my lawyer, let's say last week. So let's just throw out November 15th, giving us the information saying, if you have this type of structure, make sure that you're paid up before December 30th. If you have this type of structure, you have until, we'll just throw out April 15th. If you have this type of structure, it needs to be done before June of the following year. So with a good property lawyer, they're going to let you know what you need to be paying. You can talk with them or your accountant and find out what those fees are. And then you're going to have to renew your corporation from year to year. Corporations, depends on what lawyer you use. Corporations to set up can be anywhere from $650 with the books, registered, everything, up to $850 or $900. There's not a lot of difference between each one. Just one office may just have more overhead.
Yeah. But our marketing people.
Yeah. Taxes on property, they get reevaluated every 3 years unless legislation is changed, but they get checked and see what the property values are worth every 3 years. So they go in and check it out. And property taxes, as you found out, are extremely inexpensive here.
Yeah, but there is a luxury tax if you're over a certain threshold. I think 200,000 or.
You are correct with that, but then also you let the people know that it's not on the purchase amount of that property; it's on the valued appraisal of that property. So even though you're spending 250, well, let's say you're spending 300,000, and if it is at 250, you're paying the luxury tax on that 50,000, which is
the difference.
It's just the difference. But if you bought a $300,000 property, it does not mean that it is valued by Costa Rica at 300. It may be at 219,000.
Yeah.
So
you
those
could
are
be
things to look at as well. And your lawyer or a good accountant can give you that exact information.
Yeah, but I love it. It's stuff to consider. And as you mentioned, property taxes are really low. Even the luxury tax is really a bargain, in my opinion, but still something to think about. And there's different tax seasons. Like you said, there's certain dates you pay certain amounts. So you do need to have a team. If anybody wants to try it on their own, I don't recommend it. It's a bit
Do not do it.
complicated.
You're going to lose a lot more money than
Yes.
spending that. We had a client. Well, I inherited a client that had bad misrepresentation, and their realtor told them, you have to get your corporation set up first. You do not have to get your corporation set up first. And I highly suggest you do not get your corporation set up until 2 weeks prior to. And if you want to wait a month prior to, that's fine. But do not get it set up prior to. I'm hitting the table. I'm sorry about that. That is not an earthquake. But make sure you wait at the last minute to get your corporation set up, because if you are closing on a property in February 15th of 2023, but you decide to set up your corporation in November because you've come out and you've seen a property and the realtor says, oh my gosh, get your corporation set up now. Bad advice.
Yeah.
Make sure you get the right advice. Do it after the first of the year so you're not having to repay those taxes. Will they be prorated? Yes, but there's no reason to have to pay extra money if you don't have to. And this poor client was told, you need to get a corporation set up. They had it set up in the end of 2020. And we found out that their property lawyer did not send them the information or could not get a hold of them for a year and a half. And they were $4,000 behind in payment.
Wow.
They were going to be penalized. Now, a good property lawyer that we put them onto made a lot of changes and fixed a lot of things for that.
Good. So yeah, you need the proper team and the power team to help you set all these things up. So Kevin, how can our listeners get a hold of you? What's the best way to find out more and learn about your deals and the people that you recommend and work with?
Absolutely. And well, strategically, everything is pretty much Costa Rica Investment Properties.com, Kevin at Costa Rica Investment Properties.com, or you can search me on YouTube. The handle is Costa Rica Investment Properties. So that's for YouTube. Instagram is Costa Rica Investment Properties, and Facebook is Costa Rica Investment Properties. I got really lucky with that all the way through.
Yes. Yeah, you were able to still reserve your name everywhere. But I love it too. You have a nice newsletter with all kinds of tips and tricks and great ideas. I think a recent one you were sharing about some restaurants and different things. So it's really good to follow along and see your journey and what you're experiencing. So I invite anybody listening to reach out to Kevin and learn more about Haco and the area. How far do you help people, Kevin? Like, does it?
Well, that's a great question, and we do have alliances up in Guanacaste area in Tamarindo, Playa Flamingo, Coco that we can work with, and all the way down to Uvita, the Escazú area, which is in San Jose, Santa Ana, things like that. But for me personally, I'll go an hour south of here and probably about an hour north of here, staying on the coast. I feel most comfortable with that. And I don't want to mislead anybody. If they're going to want to look at properties, I'm happy to take them down there, but we're going to go down there with another agent and work with them hand in hand to make sure that we get the right information and representation.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Find someone who knows the area, who lives there and understands the community and what's going on, because you're attuned to new developments and what's happening in the area. While let's say I asked you in Limon what's going on, well, you don't know because it's quite far. So the same applies here in Canada and in many places. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your knowledge and your story. Very exciting, going from the US to Australia and then back to the US, then Costa Rica. What an amazing journey. And now
it's kind of funny. All the colors of the countries I've lived in, it's all red, white, and blue.
So yes, that's right. Yeah. I mean, more blue in the US, a bit more blue in Australia, but now I guess more red. You're becoming more Canadian or Tico. I don't know. Very cool. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and we'll have to catch up in a few months and see how your daughter's doing and what you're up to.
Yeah, thank you. And please follow us. We're going to be releasing a new project just after the first of the year. It'll be a very nice luxury, high-end luxury beachfront community as well. So thank you so much,
Amazing.
Francois. I can't wait to meet you guys face to face. Enough of this talking back and forth and Zoom and all these other things. Let's get it together.
Yes, let's do it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Francois. Bye, guys.
Hello, Wine and Real Estate listeners. Jason Lowe here from episode number 129. Access to financing and dealing with the banks can be frustrating. We've all felt it. Every payment that you make, whether it's the mortgages, property taxes, repairs and maintenance, unplanned vacancy, every single transaction is a permanent transfer of money away from you, making the wheels of the banking business and the real estate business turn. In other words, you're doing all the work and everyone else is getting all your money. Let me show you everything that I know from my 15 years of experience teaching people the process of becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept all across Canada. All you need to do is head on over to ibc4me.com. Again, that's ibc4me.com, and I will give you the blueprint to solve the problem. Again, that's ibc4me.com. Whatever your real estate and wealth building goals are, I promise you the infinite banking concept is the best process to get you there. I encourage you to take the next step. Simply head on over to ibc4me.com. Again, that's ibc4me.com. And if you think you can't afford to do that right away, well, let me tell you, you can't afford not to discover this. I truly believe that what you'll learn will open your eyes to a whole new financial world.
Hey there, listeners. We hope you enjoyed this latest episode of the Wine and Real Estate podcast.
Yes, absolutely. You can find us on Instagram. Our handle is wine_and_real estate. So wine and real estate. On Facebook, FL Homes Corp. And you can also find us on our YouTube channel.
Yes, and please make sure to give us a rating, 5 stars, or any comments. We'd love to hear from you. And we love suggestions as well. Cheers.
Yeah, chin chin.